as published on nondetail.com.
Pegasus project is being discussed all over the media, so here I am attempting to collate all those details. Let us begin. President Macron orders multiple inquiries into leaked Pegasus project data. French president acts after his phone number, and those of most of his cabinet, appeared in leaked database. Israel forms a damage control team after NSO Pegasus spyware reports. The Israeli government is forming a special team to manage the fallout from reports that software developed by Israeli firm NSO was used by governments around the world to spy on journalists, human rights activists and possibly world leaders. Why it matters? So far, this is primarily a media crisis for Israel. But senior Israeli officials are concerned it could morph into a diplomatic crisis. The Israeli officials said that NSO's export license included terms about the misuse of spyware, and the reports would likely influence future deals involving NSO and other Israeli companies. It is a very substantial crisis, statement by a senior Israeli official. We are trying to fully understand its ramifications. We will have to check whether the reports about NSO warrant a change in our policy regarding the export of offensive cyber technology to other countries. We now see states that cannot build high-end capability being able to buy it, Cameron said at a cyber conference in Tel Aviv, adding that it was vital that all cyber actors use capabilities in a way that is legal, responsible and proportionate to ensure cyberspace remains a safe and prosperous place for everyone. And we will work with allies to achieve this. Israeli Minister of Defense Benny Gantz spoke at the same conference and said Israel was studying reports about the alleged use of the Pegasus software in violation of the terms of its export license. We approve the export of cyber products only to governments and only for lawful use in order to prevent crime and terrorism. Countries who purchase those systems must adhere to the conditions of use, Gantz said. Whereas in India attempts are being made to brush this entire episode aside. Ban Amnesty over Pegasus leaks roll. The Chief Minister of Assam accuses human rights body of conspiracy to defame India's PM, and then this evergreen defense.
बालाकोट और उरी में देश के जवानों की शहादत का सबूत मांगती है। उससे और क्या अपेक्षा की जाए? जो कांग्रेस पार्टी आज तक गलवान को लेकर देश में आशंका का माहौल बनाती है, जबकि पूरी दुनिया ने इस बात को स्वीकार किया कि भारतीय सेनाओं ने नरेंद्र मोदी की अगुवाई में एक प्रभावी प्रदर्शन किया, उससे और क्या उम्मीद की जाए?
Indian government cites old RTI response to deny Pegasus link, and says that media didn't do due diligence. Ironically, the RTI response being referred to is from October 2019, where the Union Ministry of Home Affairs did not deny purchasing Pegasus spyware or even that it was considering purchasing Pegasus. Instead, the information officer had said, in this regard, it is informed that no such information is available with the CPIO, Central Public Information Officer. The questions asked by RTI applicant Saurav Das had been direct. 1. Has the Government of India purchased NSO Group's Pegasus? 2. Has there ever been a proposal to purchase it? 3. Is the government considering purchasing Pegasus? Das himself has spoken out against the government response, saying the part that refers to the RTI he filed is untrue. The RTI response to me neither confirmed nor denied the use of Pegasus, he said. Amazon shuts down some Infra and accounts linked to NSO Group. This is the first time that Amazon has addressed the use of its technology by NSO. Amazon Web Services, AWS, has shut down infrastructure and accounts linked to Israeli surveillance vendor NSO Group, Amazon said in a statement. The move comes as a group of media outlets and activist organizations published new research into NSO's malware and phone numbers potentially selected for targeting by NSO's government clients. When we learned of this activity, we acted quickly to shut down the relevant infrastructure and accounts, an AWS spokesperson told Motherboard in an email. Amazon has previously remained silent on NSO using its infrastructure. In May 2020, when Motherboard uncovered evidence that NSO had used Amazon infrastructure to deliver malware, Amazon did not respond to a request for comment asking if NSO had violated Amazon's terms of service. The Amnesty report said NSO is also using services from other companies such as DigitalOcean, OVH, and Linode. Citizen Lab, in a peer review of Amnesty's findings, said in its own post that the group, independently observed NSO Group, began to make extensive use of Amazon services including CloudFront in 2021. CloudFront is a content delivery network, CDN, that allows customers, in this case NSO, to more quickly and reliably deliver content to users. Amazon CloudFront is a fast content delivery network, CDN, service that securely delivers data, videos, applications, and APIs to customers globally with low latency, high transfer speeds, all within a developer-friendly environment, CloudFront's website reads. CloudFront infrastructure was used in deployments of NSO's malware against targets, including on the phone of a French human rights lawyer, according to Amnesty's report. The move to CloudFront also protects NSO somewhat from researchers or other third parties trying to unearth the company's infrastructure. The use of cloud services protects NSO Group from some internet scanning techniques, Amnesty's report added. Before we dwell further, what is Pegasus? Pegasus Spyware is malicious software that is designed to enter a device, gather your data, and then forward it to a third party without the consent of the user. The Pegasus snooping controversy led to multiple disruptions in the current monsoon session 2021 of the Indian Parliament. How does Pegasus spyware find its way to your phone? Zero-click exploits use bugs in popular apps like iMessage, FaceTime and WhatsApp. Pegasus can infiltrate a device using the protocol of the app once bugs are found.
So how does Pegasus get into your phone, and what does it do once it's actually in your phone?
Right, so it's an incredibly powerful bit of malware because it can slip in so easily, and once it's there, it can do pretty much anything. So an older iteration actually relied on something called spear phishing, which is where you receive a text message or an email. It's got a malicious link. You inadvertently click the link and it installs this software. Now, though, it's able to reach phones using something called a zero-click attack, which is as scary as it sounds. It means it can exploit a vulnerability in one of the apps on your phone without any interaction from yourself. So we don't know all the examples of how it might use this, but one has been WhatsApp. Pegasus has been known to infect a phone via a WhatsApp call, and you don't even have to pick up the call for it to infect your phone. App developers are obviously constantly trying to patch these vulnerabilities, but they're always playing catch up. And where these attacks don't succeed, you can of course install Pegasus wirelessly if you're near the target, or even steal a mobile phone and install it that way as well. Once it's there, it has root access to your phone. That means it can do pretty much anything. It can read your messages, it can read your emails, it can look at all the photos, videos, and other media on your device. It can access your contacts. It knows where you are because of GPS, and probably the scariest for me is the fact that it can listen to your microphone and it can turn on your camera without you knowing. Not only that, it can read the keys you're typing, so it can read your keystrokes and will know every password you're typing into your phone.
It is absolutely frightening, but this is a story which is very close to home because it turns out that at France 24, at least one of our staff members were on the list of those leaked numbers.
Yeah.
How can you tell if your phone has indeed been infected?
Well, the bad news is that it's next to impossible to detect by yourself, and even with a team of cybersecurity experts, it's going to be very difficult. Your phone doesn't display any symptoms as if it was sick. It doesn't slow down or show any sort of sign that Pegasus is there. And researchers actually believe the latest version of Pegasus might exist in your phone's temporary memory. So it's RAM rather than its hard drive. So if you go sniffing around in its files trying to find the malware, you're not going to find it there because it's on a temporary file. If it's uninstalled, it won't leave any trace behind it. It's quite unclear at the moment what methods the Pegasus project team have been using to figure out which mobile numbers on the list have been linked to to verify that they've got Pegasus on them. They must be using careful monitoring of data being sent from the phone via the internet. At this point, if you want to get rid of it, want to get sure you don't have Pegasus, the only way to do so is get rid of your phone and change your mobile number. According to Citizen Lab, even a factory data reset of your phone does not remove it.
Unbelievable. And even then, if you get a new number, you stand at risk of, again, attracting the attention of people who use that malware. Thank you so much, Peter O'Brien, for that.
In November 2019, a tech reporter from New York City photographed an interception device displayed at Millepol, a trade show on Homeland Security in Paris. The exhibitor, NSO Group, placed the hardware at the back of a van, perhaps suggesting convenience of portability, and said it would not work on US phone numbers, possibly due to a self-imposed restriction by the firm. Since the Israeli cyber giant was founded in 2010, that was probably the first time an NSO-made portable base transceiver station, BTS, was featured in a media report. A BTS, or rogue cell tower, or IMSI catcher, or Stingray, impersonates legitimate cellular towers and forces mobile phones within a radius to connect to it, so that the intercepted traffic can be manipulated by an attacker. The BTS photographed in 2019 was composed of horizontally stacked cards, likely to allow interception over multiple frequency bands. The other option is to leverage access to the target's mobile operator itself. In that scenario, an attacker would not need any rogue cell tower but would rely on the regular network infrastructure for manipulation. Either way, the capability of launching network injection attacks, performed remotely without the target's engagement, hence, also called zero-click, or knowledge, gave Pegasus, NSO Group's flagship product, an unique edge over its competitors in the global spyware market. How is Pegasus different from other spyware? Pegasus aka Q Suite, marketed by the NSO Group aka Q Cyber Technologies, is a world-leading cyber intelligence solution that enables law enforcement and intelligence agencies to remotely and covertly extract data from virtually any mobile devices, was developed by veterans of Israeli intelligence agencies. Until early 2018, NSO Group clients primarily relied on SMS and WhatsApp messages to trick targets into opening a malicious link, which would lead to infection of their mobile devices. A Pegasus brochure described this as enhanced social engineering message, ESEM. When a malicious link packaged as ESEM is clicked, the phone is directed to a server that checks the operating system and delivers the suitable remote exploit. What kind of devices are vulnerable? All devices, practically. iPhones have been widely targeted with Pegasus through Apple's default iMessage app and the push notification service, APNs, protocol upon which it is based. The spyware can impersonate an application downloaded to an iPhone and transmit itself as push notifications via Apple's servers. In August 2016, the Citizen Lab, an interdisciplinary laboratory based at the University of Toronto, reported the existence of Pegasus to cybersecurity firm Lookout, and the two flagged the threat to Apple. In April 2017, Lookout and Google released details on an Android version of Pegasus. In October 2019, WhatsApp blamed the NSO group for exploiting a vulnerability in its video calling feature. A user would receive what appeared to be a video call, but this was not a normal call. After the phone rang, the attacker secretly transmitted malicious code in an effort to infect the victim's phone with spyware. The person did not even have to answer the call, WhatsApp chief Will Cathcart said. In December 2020, a Citizen Lab report flagged how government operatives used Pegasus to hack 37 phones belonging to journalists, producers, anchors, and executives at Al Jazeera and London-based Al Arabi TV during July-August 2020, exploiting a zero-day, a vulnerability unknown to developers, against at least iOS 13.5.1 that could hack Apple's then latest iPhone 11. While the attack did not work against iOS 14 and above, the report said the infections it observed were probably a minuscule fraction of the total attacks, given the global spread of the NSO group's customer base and the apparent vulnerability of almost all iPhone devices prior to the iOS 14 update. iMessage emerges as a zero-click vector. Since at least 2016, spyware vendors appear to have successfully deployed zero-click exploits against iPhone targets at a global scale. Several of these attempts have been reported to be through Apple's iMessage app, which is installed by default on every iPhone, Mac, and iPad. Threat actors may have been aided in their iMessage attacks by the fact that certain components of iMessage have historically not been sandboxed in the same way as other apps on the iPhone. Who owns Pegasus Spyware? The Pegasus Spyware, developed by Israeli software company NSO Group to fight crime and terror. NSO Group Technologies is an Israeli technology firm whose spyware called Pegasus enables the remote surveillance of smartphones. It was founded in 2010 by Niv Karmi, Omri Levi, and Shalev Julio. It employed almost 500 people as of 2017, and is based in Herzliya, near Tel Aviv. Israeli evolution of Pegasus spyware in 2016. It infected smartphones using a technique called spear phishing. In the same year, WhatsApp said Pegasus exploited a bug in its code to infect more than 1,400 iPhones and Android phones. These include journalists, government officials, and human rights activists. It soon fixed the bug. July 2021, the Pegasus Project, an international investigative journalism effort, revealed that various governments used the software to spy on opposition politicians, government officials, activists, journalists, and many others. It said the Indian government used it to spy on around 300 people between 2017 and 2019. Pegasus spyware in detail. Pegasus spyware is able to read the victim's SMS messages and emails, listen to calls, take screenshots, record keystrokes, and access contacts and browser history. Hackers can hijack the phone's microphone and camera, turning it into a real-time surveillance device. Pegasus can send back to the hacker the target's private data, including contact lists, calendar events, passwords, text messages, and live voice calls from popular mobile messaging apps. The target's phone camera and microphone can be turned on to capture all activity in the phone's vicinity, expanding the scope of the surveillance. Pegasus has evolved from a crude system that was reliant on social engineering to software that can compromise a phone without the user having to click on a single link. This is called zero-click attack. Targets of Pegasus spyware media outlets said they had identified more than 1,000 people in over 50 countries whose numbers were on the list. They include business executives, activists, politicians and heads of state and many royal family members of Arab. More than 180 journalists were also found to be on the list, from organizations including the New York Times, CNN and Al Jazeera. According to the reports, many of the numbers were clustered in 10 countries: Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Hungary, India, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. World has witnessed in 2018 how Khashoggi family was targeted during the investigation. Evidence has also emerged that family members of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi were targeted with Pegasus software before and after his murder in Istanbul on the 2nd of October 2018 by Saudi operatives, despite repeated denials from NSO Group.
On October 2, 2018, journalist Jamal Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate in Turkey and never came back out. Around the time of his murder, a powerful spyware may have been used to surveil his family.
Activists, journalists, all are said to have been hacked by spyware developed by the Israeli company called the NSO Group.
A consortium of news outlets from around the world, including Frontline, have been investigating the use of the spyware called Pegasus and the Israeli company NSO Group that sells it to foreign governments.
The government can see anything on the phone, including pictures, contacts, listening into calls.
As part of the investigation into Pegasus, Washington Post reporter Dana Priest traveled to Istanbul. Working with the journalism nonprofit Forbidden Stories, the reporters were given access to 50,000 phone numbers concentrated in countries known to be NSO clients. They included journalists, politicians, human rights activists, and Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée, Hatice Cengiz. Dana Priest and a producer working for Frontline and Forbidden Stories met with Hatice to verify if her phone had in fact been hacked.
What I'm doing is basically a backup, and based on this backup we will look if there is any trace of infection, past or current. What we're looking for is traces of a software called Pegasus.
I remember the first days after the murder, a lot of times they try to hack my email. And then Gmail was sending to me emails that time. Someone tried to open your account or something like that.
The simple ones are like that message. The really sophisticated ones, they don't need a message. They don't need you to do anything.
Really?
Yeah.
But why people say the iPhone, the more safe to no one can hack or...
That's what the iPhone says, the company. But it's not true. So the Pegasus software can, if it gets inside, I don't know if it gets inside every time it tries, but if it gets inside, it can turn your microphone on so that it can, whoever is doing it can listen to what you're saying and what other people are saying. But it also can go into your email, your WhatsApp, your contacts, your pictures, your videos, and it can just steal them all, make a copy of everything. And then, you know, our thought is if it's doing that against people like you, who are not terrorists or criminals, then why? Part of what we want to show, what we think we know, what we are discovering, and what we're researching is, no, they use it against civilians. And why would they want to know what you're doing?
Yes, it's my personal life. It's my secret life. It is not enough to say please stop after this murder. Please, yani, it's over.
After getting backups of both Hadija's new phone and the one she was using at the time of Khashoggi's murder, Dana Priest sent them to Amnesty International's security lab for analysis. A few hours later, while on the way back to the airport, she received a call with the results.
I guess the spree of bad news is never ending. So I checked both the uploads. The new one seems clean to me. The old one, however, has some traces that seem consistent with what we've seen.
Oh.
So on the 6th of October of 2018 seems to have been a first compromise, which was followed by some additional traces on the 9th and then on the 12th, which is obviously, as you know, pretty timely within the context, obviously.
Yeah. Wow. She's already been infected, so it's already happened, so it's great that you're finding it.
Yeah, I don't think
There was now proof that Pegasus had been used to target one of the people closest to Jamal Khashoggi around the time of his death. In a statement, NSO Group said its technology was not associated in any way with Khashoggi's murder. The company said it was on a life-saving mission, preventing terror attacks and serious crimes. But in addition to Hatice, Frontline, Forbidden Stories, and the partner news outlets are investigating the cases of journalists, human rights activists, politicians, and others in more than 50 countries who may have been targeted for surveillance.
Amnesty International's security lab established that Pegasus spyware was successfully installed on the phone of Khashoggi's fiancée Hatice Cengiz just 4 days after his murder. His wife, Hanan Alata, was also repeatedly targeted with the spyware between September 2017 and April 2018, as well as his son, Abdullah, who was also selected as a target along with other family members in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. In a statement, the NSO Group responded to the Pegasus project allegations, saying that its technology was not associated in any way with the heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi. The company said that it previously investigated this claim, immediately after the heinous murder, which again, is being made without validation. Who spied on who? As per Forbidden Stories, this is a list of world leaders and diplomats affected by surveillance through Pegasus, and the countries who appear to have attempted to snoop did it between 2016 and 2019. Cyril Ramaphosa, president of South Africa, appeared to have been targeted by a Rwandan client of NSO. Emmanuel Macron, president of France, appeared to have been targeted by a Moroccan client of NSO. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization, appears to have been targeted by a Moroccan client of NSO. Saad Hariri, former Prime Minister of Lebanon, appears to have been targeted by a UAE client of NSO. Charles Michel, President of the European Council and former President of Belgium, appears to have been targeted by a Moroccan NSO client. Mohammed VI, King of Morocco, appears to have been targeted by a Moroccan NSO client. Saadetdine Othmani, Prime Minister of Morocco, appears to have been targeted by an NSO client in the same country. Felipe Calderón, former president of Mexico, appears to have been targeted by a Mexican NSO client. Robert Malley, U.S. Special Representative to Iran, appears to have been targeted by a Moroccan NSO client. The Washington Post reported that NSO said, "We can confirm that at least 3 names in your inquiry, Emmanuel Macron, King Mohammed VI, and Tedros Ghebreyesus, are not, and never have been, targets or selected as targets of NSO Group customers. All of the French and Belgian government officials or diplomats mentioned in the list are not and never have been Pegasus targets." The Indian government has not denied buying Pegasus from NSO. Since 2019, it has said that it doesn't illegally snoop on people, but never outright said that it is not an NSO client. This, in spite of the fact that NSO's Pegasus allows hacking on top of regular surveillance, the former being illegal in India. Now a news that never saw the media light. NSO employee also abused phone hacking tech to target a love interest. This latest case of abuse is different though. Rather than a law enforcement body, intelligence agency, or government using the tool, an NSO employee abused it for their own personal ends. Several years ago, and at the time NSO employee traveled to the UAE for work, a former employee explained to Motherboard. NSO sent the employee to do on-site support, a second former employee said. While on location, the employee broke into the client's office. The client received an alert that someone had logged into the Pegasus system out of normal office hours and investigated, one of the sources with knowledge of the incident added. Authorities detained the NSO employee, 2 sources said. The client was pissed, the first former employee said. He used the system while nobody was looking, the second former employee added. The client-facing side of the Pegasus system is very easy to use. In some cases a user simply enters the phone number of the target, and the process of breaking into the device starts. The target was a woman the employee knew personally, the sources said. NSO fired the employee, those 2 sources added. The company's leadership held a meeting to tell employees about the incident to make sure it would not happen again, they said. They deal harshly with abuse of the system, one of the former NSO employees told Motherboard. 2 sources said the abuse happened in 2016, while NSO was majority owned by U.S. investment firm Francisco Partners. In February 2019, NSO's founders bought back their company from the firm. The sources did not specify which UAE agency's NSO installation the employee abused. UAE has 3 intelligence agencies: UAE State Security, the Signals Intelligence Agency, and the Military Intelligence Security Services. K, the United Nations Special Reporter, and who has called for a worldwide pause on the export of hacking technology before more regulation can be put in place, told Motherboard the incident raises a number of questions around NSO. How in fact can an employee do that in the first place? He asked, and whether there are other incidents of abuse of the platform. After this case, NSO introduced more rigorous screening of customer-facing people, one of the former employees told Motherboard. That includes biometric checks to ensure only authorized people are able to use the system, a source familiar with the incident added. Although in this instance the employee was caught abusing the tool, on a more technical level, there is nothing stopping me from using the system against whoever I wanted, one of the former employees told Motherboard. NSO is currently embroiled in a lawsuit with Facebook, with the tech giant suing NSO for leveraging a vulnerability in WhatsApp so customers could remotely hack into phones just by dialing their number. The company has also developed a technology designed to track the spread of COVID-19, but privacy experts are concerned about the system's design. NSOs stand on the issue, the NSO has said that it sells its technologies only to law enforcement and intelligence agencies of governments for the purpose of saving lives through preventing crime and terror acts. The group said, it does not operate the system and has no visibility to the data. As per the company's website, NSO products are used exclusively by government intelligence and law enforcement agencies to fight crime and terror. In lengthy responses before publication, NSO called the investigation's findings exaggerated and baseless. It also said it does not operate the spyware license to its clients and has no insight into their specific intelligence activities. After publication, NSO Chief Executive Shalev Julio expressed concern in a phone interview with the Post about some of the details he had read in Pegasus Project Stories Sunday, while continuing to dispute that the list of more than 50,000 phone numbers had anything to do with NSO or Pegasus. The company cares about journalists and activists and civil society in general, Julio said. We understand that in some circumstances our customers might misuse the system and, in some cases like we reported in NSO's Transparency and Responsibility Report, we have shut down systems for customers who have misused the system. He said that in the past 12 months NSO had terminated 2 contracts over allegations of human rights abuses, but he declined to name the countries involved. Every allegation about misuse of the system is concerning me, he said. It violates the trust that we give customers. We are investigating every allegation. NSO describes its customers as 60 intelligence, military and law enforcement agencies in 40 countries, although it will not confirm the identities of any of them, citing client confidentiality obligations. The consortium found many of the phone numbers in at least 10 country clusters, which were subjected to deeper analysis: Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Hungary, India, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Citizen Lab also has found evidence that all 10 have been clients of NSO, according to Bill Marchak, a senior research fellow. International Mechanisms to Mitigate Cybercrime Budapest Convention is an international convention. It seeks to address internet and computer crime, cybercrime, by improving investigative techniques, harmonizing national laws, and increasing cooperation among nations. It came into force on 1 July 2004. India is not a signatory to this convention. International Telecommunication Union is a specialized agency within the United Nations. It plays an important role in the development and standardization of telecommunications and cybersecurity issues. How can one detect the Pegasus spyware? Researchers at Amnesty International have developed a tool to see whether your phone is targeted by spyware. The tool is called Mobile Verification Toolkit, MVT. The tool is aimed to help you identify if the Pegasus spyware has targeted your phone. It works with both Android and iOS devices. This tool tells you if NSO's Pegasus spyware targeted your phone. Researchers at Amnesty, whose work was reviewed by the Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto, found that NSO can deliver Pegasus by sending a victim a link which when opened infects the phone, or silently and without any interaction at all through a zero-click exploit, which takes advantage of vulnerabilities in the iPhone software. Citizen Lab researcher Bill Marchak said in a tweet that NSO's zero clicks worked on iOS 14.6, which until today was the most up-to-date version. Amnesty's researchers showed their work by publishing meticulously detailed technical notes and a toolkit that they said may help others identify if their phones have been targeted by Pegasus. The Mobile Verification Toolkit, or MVT, works on both iPhones and Android devices, but slightly differently. Amnesty said that more forensic traces were found on iPhones than Android devices, which makes it easier to detect on iPhones. MVT will let you take an entire iPhone backup, or a full system dump if you jailbreak your phone, and feed in for any indicators of compromise, IOCs known to be used by NSO to deliver Pegasus, such as domain names used in NSO's infrastructure that might be sent by text message or email. If you have an encrypted iPhone backup, you can also use MVT to decrypt your backup without having to make a whole new copy. The toolkit works on the command line, so it's not a refined and polished user experience and requires some basic knowledge of how to navigate the terminal. We got it working in about 10 minutes, plus the time to create a fresh backup of an iPhone, which you will want to do if you want to check up to the hour. To get the toolkit ready to scan your phone for signs of Pegasus, you'll need to feed in Amnesty's IOCs, which it has on its GitHub page. Once you set off the process, the toolkit scans your iPhone backup file for any evidence of compromise. The process took about a minute or two to run and spit out several files in a folder with the results of the scan. If the toolkit finds a possible compromise, it will say so in the outputted files. In our case, we got one detection, which turned out to be a false positive and has been removed from the IOCs after we checked with the Amnesty researchers. A new scan using the updated IOCs returned no signs of compromise. Given it's more difficult to detect an Android infection, MVT takes a similar but simpler approach by scanning your Android device backup for text messages with links to domains known to be used by NSO. The toolkit also lets you scan for potentially malicious applications installed on your device. The toolkit is a command line tool, not so relatively simple to use. Since the project is open source, it won't be long before someone will surely build a user interface for it. Do digital forensics confirm Pegasus attack? In the past, Amnesty International and other organizations have recognized Pegasus spyware attacks based on specific domain names and other network infrastructure used to deliver the attacks. However, forensic evidence left behind by Pegasus also provides an independent way to attribute the attacks to the NSO Group's technology. For a number of cases in this project, Amnesty examined records of process executions and their respective network usage in iOS devices, looking for malicious fingerprints that are left behind by the spyware. Some of these processes that were detected on infected phones, and crucially did not match any legitimate code created and released by Apple, were seen in previously known Pegasus infections and appear to be key components of the Pegasus toolkit. There are a bunch of different pieces, essentially, and they all fit together very well, Claudio Garnieri, director of Amnesty International's Security Lab, said. There's no doubt in my mind that what we're looking at is Pegasus because the characteristics are very distinct and all of the traces that we see confirm each other. For the technically minded, Amnesty is publishing its full technical analysis that allowed it to reach these conclusions. What if I don't trust Amnesty? How robust is this forensic process? The Pegasus project's media partners have taken steps to help build trust in the underlying methodology used to attribute these attacks. Citizen Lab, an institute based out of the University of Toronto, which in 2019 gained widespread attention for helping WhatsApp identify human rights activists and journalists affected by Pegasus, was asked to analyze 3 iPhone backups that were examined by Amnesty and in which traces of Pegasus had been found. This was a blind test. Citizen Lab was not told of Amnesty's results before they conducted their analysis. All 3 phones were independently confirmed by Citizen Lab as having been compromised by Pegasus within the timeframe provided. We conclude with high confidence that the data usage SQLite files show evidence that the phones they were taken from were successfully infected with NSO Group's Pegasus spyware during the dates mentioned above. Our high confidence conclusion stems from the fact that we have never seen the above process names used in a benign context, and we have only ever seen them used in high confidence cases of infection with NSO Group's Pegasus spyware. The phones may also have been infected on additional dates, as data usage SQLite entries are only recorded when the phone is using mobile data, said Citizen Lab. The Institute also conducted a peer review of Amnesty's forensic methods and found them to be sound. On how many phones did they detect signs of a Pegasus attack or infection? Amnesty's Security Lab examined 67 smartphones with suspected attacks. Of those, 23 were successfully infected and 14 showed signs of attempted penetration. For the remaining 30, the tests were inconclusive, in several cases because the phones had been replaced and therefore the needed data was not available. 15 of the phones were Android devices, none of which showed evidence of successful infection. As noted above, Androids do not log the kinds of information required for Amnesty's detective work. 3 Android phones, including a device belonging to the Hindu reporter Vijita Singh, showed signs of targeting, such as Pegasus-linked SMS messages. Providing as much information on the Pegasus spyware to software and security vendors can help to fix the vulnerabilities exploited by the attackers. The governments must be transparent and should take measures such that spyware is not misused by any authority or an individual. This is of utmost importance in nations that are still evolving democracies or not yet democracies, since the institutions of such nations are not strong enough to defend such attacks on its citizens.